Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Big Apple Film Festival, and welcome to our conferences. We're going to be speaking this evening about casting. So I'd like to introduce our distinguished group of panelists. We have Logan and George, we have Celine Held, we have Adrienne Stern, and Daniel Schechter. So if you each want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your experience. We'll start at the end with Daniel.
There's some awful noise over here. My name is Stan Schechter. I'm a writer and director of independent films. I've made the 5 movies that I've written and been producing the features for that I've directed. I've done budgets as low as $60,000 and as high as $11 million, and some things in between. So I hope I can offer a variety of perspectives.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Stern. I've been a casting director for close to 30 years. I've probably cast well over 1,000 things between film, television, commercials, and theater. I still love what I do, and I'm always looking for the next great project. Like Daniel, I've worked on projects that are very minuscule, so like a SAG Ultra Low or a non-union project, and sometimes those are the best ones anyway, and projects that are up to $25, $30 million. So thanks for coming tonight.
So we work as a co-writer, co-director unit. Celine Held.
Logan. Hi.
We've done a lot of short films. We've just shot our first feature. Our short films have premiered in May competition as the only U.S. short film competition at Cannes Film Festival 2018. We were at Sundance Film Festival this year with a short. We were shortlisted for the Academy Awards this year with another one of our short films. And been at South by Southwest for 3 consecutive years. And our feature film that we just shot, we co-wrote and co-directed. Logan's editing it right now, and he should still be editing it right now, so he's freaking out that he's here. And that was a $2.8 million budget for our first feature.
No, I mean, we're very much one and the same in that the past projects that we've worked on have been both of us working on it together in tandem as writers and directors. So.
All right, so let me start by asking just an overall question, and for each of you to answer. The first one is, a filmmaker has just written a script. They are in the process of starting to develop it, trying to figure out financing. What's the very first thing they should be thinking about in terms of casting? Where does the process begin? Let's start there.
Well, I can start. First off, if they came to me with their script, and make sure that they were registered and have everything locked down before we start getting it out publicly is what I would call it. But I would really have a heart-to-heart with them and really sit down and talk to them about what their expectations are and what type of financing they have, because sometimes what you want and what you get are 2 different things. And is it financed? If not, where's the financing coming from? I always ask who's managing the project, meaning besides yourself, do you have other people that are producing it with you? What do you need to do to make sure that your project gets recognized if we were to move forward? So there's a lot of different conversations, and this is like a 2-3 hour conversation sometimes, where we go through different platforms and try to figure out where in the world of independent film your film is going to fit, and just hitting home with reality about how much your budget can buy, or if you have a budget, or if you have an executive producer that's very experienced, or a producer, are you writing, are you directing? So it's all of these things that are coming into play, and they're very important to think about, and it's very important to have a very honest and open discussion with your team that you work with.
I think we can only speak from personal experience, but for us, what's been really important about getting our work out there is having our shorts be public. Our managers were represented by Anonymous Content WME, and they found us both through our shorts being on Vimeo, literally on Vimeo. So that's been like a really big thing for us to have Vimeo staff pics, Vimeo staff pic premieres. We also work with a lot of non-actors, so for casting, we've really leaned into, if anyone has seen our short Caroline, it stars 3 children who are under the age of 6, who we lived with for a month before we shot, and we rewrote the script completely around who they were. So we basically, in our most recent feature, is about a 5-year-old girl who we found a year in advance from shooting, and we rewrote the script around her too.
Yeah, working on the feature was the first time that we were actually actively involved with the casting director. It was our first time interacting with a lot of different departments, because we normally do a lot of things ourselves. where we just, like our first 3 shorts we produced entirely on our own and did a lot of things ourselves. And it was an interesting relationship for the first time going through, casting. We had a lot of really, really specific, concrete ideas, and in terms of where the budget was, we were really adamant about, we didn't want anybody recognizable in the film, so that was sort of where we were coming from for our first
So
time.
you should go see it
And it,
next year.
but it ended up working out, but it was an indispensable relationship to have and to nurture with our casting director, Rebecca Dealey, was amazing.
The casting director who cast our main lead was Jennifer Aniston. But casting directors everywhere are amazing. They know so many people and do so much work.
I mean, I'm at the exact point that you're talking about now, where I have a project that's ready and about to go out, and it's when things are, it's like actually to me the most fun part, because there's all this promise and hope, and you have no idea if everyone's going to say no, or you're not going to raise any money or anything. But I find you can save years of your life by being immediately pragmatic and logical, and a lot of it falls under, no shit or common sense of who is reasonable that you can attach to your movie. And then it depends what kind of movie you want to make. Like I said, I've made micro-budget movies where you just cast your best people that you know or that you can get to, and then when you need a much higher budget, when you're talking about millions of dollars, you obviously want to start going for ambitious but reasonable names, and that's a science that I guess I take for granted not everybody kind of knows immediately, but it's helpful to have good advice in that department.
So for Celine and Logan, so you started out with a short film, and now you're going into a feature. Would you, if filmmakers looking to go that route, should they plan on the same cast for the short film as the feature? Like when you start that process, do you look for a cast that you know, okay, I'm using for the short, and I would eventually like to use them for the feature as well? How does that?
I don't think so necessarily. The short film that we made was really more of a proof of concept than a direct narrative version that we wanted to make in a feature. The feature and the short that we made are very, very different narratively. And I wouldn't hold yourself to any of your original cast if you have, plans to bring something, to take something into a feature space. It shouldn't dictate. I mean, the goal should be to make the best short film possible, even if you have ambitions to take it beyond that. And so I don't think you sort of get into the weeds if you're trying to plan long term.
I just want to agree. A lot of times, short filmmaker, and I do cast a lot of shorts because you develop a relationship with filmmakers that will go on to make a feature or commercials or whatever, lands in their plate. But a lot of them do, they come and say, well, can we get a name actor? And that way I'll make my short and then I'll attach them. And I always say, let's not go down that path. Let's make this great short, get it into film festivals. This is your calling card. And then we'll see where you land. We'll see who comes your way. And so you always want to keep yourself very open and have the ability to collaborate with the people that you bring on to work with you.
Adrienne, you have filmmakers that will hire casting directors such as yourself and others that do not. What would you, as from a casting director's perspective, what would you say is the benefit of having a casting director such as yourself?
Oh, I don't think the agents and managers are going to get back to you as quickly or even get back to you if you don't have an established casting director. They get hundreds of emails, phone calls, they have to weed through, and they have to feel that, they're presenting to you quality talent that, they want to know the film's getting made. They don't want to just keep throwing names of very experienced actors or actors you dream of or wish of to work with. So I think it's to your advantage to hire a casting director. I've been in a situation where somebody will come my way who tried to cast it on their own and they just weren't able to open those doors that they needed, and then they'll bring the project to me and all of a sudden it becomes a whole nother situation and they get the cast that they always dreamed of.
Daniel, you've worked with some very high-profile actors. Some of those actors are, a lot of filmmakers would love to work with them. How do you go about attracting that kind of talent? What advice would you give to a young filmmaker just starting out who would love to get a really well-known actor attached to their project?
Well, all right, so just to name drop only for perspective here, and so I made a movie that had Jennifer Aniston in it, and Tim Robbins in it, and John Hawkes and Mostaf and all these great actors, and my last movie just had like Fran Drescher in it, and Justin Long, and recognizable names that most households would be kind of aware of. Give me your question one more time.
So what would a young filmmaker just starting out do to try to attract that talent?
I don't know if it's mine. my microphone is awful or not. Yeah, thank you. That's much better. I'm a loudspeaker anyway. It depends. My image of a young filmmaker who might be in the audience is probably someone who wants to make a $200,000 movie, in which case it's pretty unlikely you're going to get a big name like that. And I think when I first started out, I mean, this was forever ago when the industry was so different, probably 2004, I had my first script and I was going to go to the biggest names at the time, and I had no idea how naive that was, and I wish I could go back to myself and make myself a more pragmatic person. And sometimes I need people to push me to be more ambitious, but if I was making my first feature now, I would spend as little money as possible on it, cast the best possible actors that I know, regardless of their fame, and just try to make a terrific calling card. But you also want to look at an investor in the eye and say you're making some good faith effort to make that money back, and names are certainly helpful in that regard. So it's really difficult, but it's a fun scam. Then you start going, well, who do I know who knows that person, and how can I get around that agent, and maybe if I pay a lot of money to this one kind of namey person and do all their stuff on 1 or 2 days, or they live in New York City, or my dad knows them, or they were my friend's movie, or and so my brain is always cranking out those ideas, and I find that to be very fun and exciting. But the more years you go on in the business, the more connections you have. When you're starting out, it's pretty hard to, but then you find other people you can use and take advantage of to help you get what you want.
For Celine and Logan, so you've been going to the festivals, and you mentioned you've been to Sundance, South by. Has that helped you in terms of higher profile actors contacting you, looking to work with you, things like that? Was that not even something you're
Yeah, we had over 100 meetings before getting financing for our feature. So, but for name actors, I mean, our first short mouse that we made together, the first festival we got into was South by. We were, it was super, super cool. But our lead actress in that, Logan acts in that, and then our lead actress in that, we found by, I wanted her to be like 5 years older than Logan, like older. And so I went on the grad acting, NYU and Juilliard and Yale from the time that they would have graduated of that year, and found all their emails and wrote them all emails with the script. And a bunch of them responded, and they were really interested. And this woman from Minneapolis sent in a tape. We did a ton of auditions, and that was her. I mean, we couldn't afford. We produced it. I got sandwiches from Trader Joe's, and we got really lucky. And then after that, we got representation. And then through our representation, we had a lot of. We've had a good number of name actors wanting to work with us, which is super exciting, or wanting to collaborate with us on something. We're super into no name, like down and dirty. I don't know. I mean, there are so many great actors out there who aren't well known too.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't think that going to a festival is a space where you could potentially meet up with a well-known actor and potentially be able to pitch your movie and get them involved. Like that's never been around.
We've never met. It's their production companies who get in touch with us who say this actor, or their agents. It's not like them.
Yeah. So the festival scene is more like, I think, us swimming in similar circles of like our own peers, other producers, other filmmakers that are in the same sort of level of trajectory of our career that we're interacting with us.
But I'm just saying, when you're at a festival or something and you do meet somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, it would be great if they were in my film, you gotta remember they have gatekeepers, and even though it's nice to mention it, if that's what you want to do, you still have to go through a whole hurdle to get their attention. They're gonna be like, sure, send it to me, or contact my agent. And even for me, I mean, I always have to go in the front door. Now, if my filmmakers, my producers, my directors have a relationship with an established actor, they can surely contact them and, get them the script. But for me, as a professional, I cannot do that. I will get reprimanded by an agent or manager if I were to run into an actor or somebody that I'm friendly with. Because if it doesn't work out, or the deal, it's just not professional. So do keep that in mind. And also, one of the things that's really important when you go to a film festival, the other people that you see that you would like to work with, if you see them in a conversation with somebody, wait till they walk away. They're there for the same reason you're there. They're there pitching themselves, looking for money, looking for a job. So, keep that in mind. Some people might be more established than other people, but always be considerate consider it, because there's nothing worse than being interrupted just as somebody's gonna be like, great, send me your script, I'm looking to put $500,000 into a film right now.
Adrienne, when we hear the term like main actor or bankable actor, is that changing somewhat because of like YouTube stars and social media celebrities? Is that landscape changing somewhat?
I have had a lot of experience with casting influencers, is what we're going to call them, and that means somebody who has a large number of followers on whether it's Instagram or one of the other sites, and that's usually a disaster, I will say. Let's just get the best actor possible for the role, and what to me is even more important is, all right, so maybe you don't have a lot of money, maybe you're paying scale on your modified or your ultra low, and go shopping. I always think of it like, make sure you pick actors from some of the really great agencies. They have a lot of young talent. They have a lot of talent who would love to come work with you. Don't keep focusing on the same, couple of actors that is probably receiving 20 offers, a minute, and they're never even going to look at your project. Try to be open-minded, because again, back to what Celine and Logan did, what Daniel mentioned, this is your calling card, and just get it into a festival. When you go to a festival with a film, you're going to meet so many people that you never met before, and you don't know what you're going to walk away with. I have gone to so many festivals where I've been hired for films just because I happened to go to that festival or have other films in. So to me, film festivals are such a great way to network. So go out and make shorts.
The third option to those two options, which is the way too busy actor and the great unknown, and this is where my scheming brain comes in, is, okay, so my last film that just premiered at Tribeca, for example, had Fran Drescher in it. For those who don't know, she was a massive star in the 90s of a sitcom called The Nanny. She was a name a lot of people at festivals and distribution have been wildly excited about. Everyone I talk to knows that name, they light up. And yet, I don't think she was getting 20 offers a minute, and I think she was a little excited about it. So then it's also identifying the kind of person that has value, or that other actors want to work with, but that you think maybe isn't, maybe it's the pretty gal at the bar who isn't being asked out right now and showing her some love, or writing a personal note, or is kind of a wise idea too. And that's also hard to identify, but it's fun to try to find that person.
Maybe just what I was talking about before, would you ever look at like a social media kind of talent for one of your
people keep telling me and my friends that they have so-and-so attached, and I don't know. To me, there's nothing better than saying a name everyone knows. When you have to explain who they are, they were on the 3rd season of 6 Feet Under, or they have a 1.4 million followers on Instagram. I'm like, you've lost me, and I think I'm a pretty average Joe. So, so my instinct, I'm actually most pleased to hear that that's the case. But I don't know, things are changing too, and I'm not resistant to that, but I haven't seen evidence of its success.
But listen, back to your question, another level of it, I'm on a lot of films where we have sales agents and we have distributors that are, I know are on the films, we're pleasing them. Everybody you work with that's a sales agent or a distribution company, they have foreign, they have domestic, they have different wants and needs. So just because one company wants that, another company may not want that. And I'll give you an experience of something that happened. I have a team I work with. We're on a couple of films right now, and we did many films together. We were finally going to do our big film, so we looked at the script. My director said to me, who should we have as the lead? We came up with some ideas. I had Henry Rollins on the list. They were like, great, we love him. Literally, by day 2, Henry had read the script. He happened to be in New York. He sat with the director, and he was on the film. So now we just have to find the rest of the money. We have to seed money. Seed money is to hire a casting director, to hire an attorney, just to get things moving forward. So the 3 of us went up to the Toronto Film Festival, and we made 1 million meetings, and we knocked on every door in the hotel and went into all the different parties. And we had people saying to us, well, why do you have Henry Rollins? Why don't you have Dylan McDermott or Dermot Mulrooney? Those are the 2 names people kept throwing at us. And literally at one moment, I picked my partners up. I said, bye, we're like in the middle of like the Hyatt, and we walked away. And we're going up there and just meeting so many people. We found our money. We shot in Toronto. Our budget was like a little under 3. And, now we're doing a couple of other films. We took like a 2-year hiatus. And, a lot of the financiers that we work with up in Canada are working with us again, and some new ones. So go out there and feel that what your decision is what you want for your film, and go find the people who support it.
It also, again, I don't want to presume anything is common sense. It shouldn't go without saying that when you have financing, it is a lot more easy to cast. I imagine the worst sentence that you've made in your life is when the agent writes back, "Is the film
I
financed?"
get that every
Because
day.
suddenly all of your air goes out of your balloon and you feel 2 inches tall or something like that.
We can solve that a little though. Let's say you have some seed money, okay? You want to make your film, your budget's going to be, let's say, $650. You're going to be a SAG modified. Maybe you have some older actors or some ethnicity in it, so you can raise the budget a little. So with that seed money, let's say you do attract somebody that is going to play your lead, your geriatric lead, we're going to call them. And maybe what you could do is not do a pay or play, but what you do is you put money in escrow into that agency, and then after a certain period of time, you put another amount in, but you're raising money. It gives you time to raise money. It gives you a chance to use the name of that talent, and the agent feels good. And then after a certain period of time, if for some reason the film doesn't shoot, then that agency walks away with whatever was in that escrow account. So I've been on a number of films where we've done that. Luckily, we've shot all the films, but that's sort of another way to sort of go out there and, you know, throw out a red carpet and get somebody attached to your film.
I met a filmmaker recently who was talking about casting an older actor who was pretty famous, like in the 70s and 80s, not so relevant anymore, but definitely known. And they were asking for a pretty large amount of money. So I'm going to just ask this question, and wondering if each of you can answer it. Is it worth it to go that route? And is there a difference between a known actor and a relevant actor, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had lots of conversations about what kind of caliber of cast we wanted for this first feature, and what we kept coming back to is we just wanted to be working with people that were as hungry as we were within this current state of where we were in our career. So we worked with actors that you know were established in a certain regard, but were hungry for like a really meaty supporting role that they could sink their teeth into. One of these supporting roles, we had an actor who was sort of going against their agency in a lot of different ways because they were so eager, because the casting director that we were working with got the script to them, and they were fighting for it on their team. And that's the kind of people that you want to show up to work with every day. So we haven't had the experience of working with extremely famous people, and so I wouldn't be able to speak to what that presence is like on set. But I just know that from our experience, what we wanted out of our first feature was to be working in tandem with someone and not catering to someone's expectations.
I think we are so young in our career that we don't quite think in like a really business mindset yet. And I think that has a lot of detriments in a conversation like this especially. Cast can get your movie made. We had a lot of faces say to us, "We will fund your movie if you put one of these 5 actors in it," and we literally just walked away every time. We worked with our actors like crazy people. For our short lockdown that was at Sundance, we worked with the 2 leads for months in finding chemistry and working together and rebuilding the relationship. I mean, so for us, a name actor is never going to do that. They're just not. I don't think anyone.
Well, you're just going to have to be jumping different sort of hoops to do that, and like it just wasn't where we wanted to spend our time and energy for this project.
I'm talking about lockdown and tops.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done that a lot, and so we've just walked away. We financed all of our shorts ourselves by putting it on credit cards and then paying off through our commercial work. And for our feature, we just kept walking away until we had someone see our vision, until Caroline got shortlisted for the Oscars, and people were like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
I think I could tell 100 stories about older actors, and depending on who they are, you're looking at 6-figure salaries, or you're looking at something that's just going to make them happy for a couple of days. But one thing about older actors, and I do feel this way, is that I do want my client to meet them, because some of them do have some disabilities that they hide, and you're dealing with some hearing problems. Some of them need companions with them. They don't move as quickly. So you really want to make sure that if your film needs some, vitality, let's make sure that, that person's up for the game, because if they're not, you're going to have a struggle on your set. I've seen it. But then on the other side, the agents negotiate ridiculous things. I produced and cast a film with Eric Roberts. They told us over and over again he doesn't eat meat and he's not going to talk to the other actors. On day one, he sat on the stoop with all the actors eating hamburgers. So, you just don't know what you're going to get when they show up. And, he was friendly and interacted with everybody and, was happy to be there. So, again, it's important that you figure out what works best for you.
Going to the part of your question where you were asking sort of actors who are known versus actors who are valuable, is that more or less?
Relevant versus known. They're not necessarily the same thing, right?
Right, well, just to give my one story about this, so I made a movie called Life of Crime with Jennifer Aniston, and it was based on an Elmore Leonard novel. By the way, that was very slick of me as well, because I realized that the Dan Schechter project didn't really get agents excited, but an Elmore Leonard project got agents excited. I was able to capitalize on that person's name, and that wasn't just luck. And the first two actors we attached in that movie was a prequel to a movie called Jackie Brown, where Sam Jackson and Robert De Niro play these older criminals, and I had the young versions of them. So that was another cool thing to tell agents. It was a prequel to Tarantino film. And so we got John Hawkes and Mos Def to play these young people. Now, when you start making very high budgets, you try to do foreign sales. Those two actors are not valuable overseas the way Jennifer Aniston was. But they were the first two I got involved, and they were kind of what you might consider actor magnets. They are respected actors, they're really good actors. John was on a run of a couple Oscar nominations at that point, and then Jennifer Aniston came to us once we had that kind of going. And I had a great producer who was really helpful in casting that movie as well. But ever since that movie, I've sort of been approaching the cast not from top bottom as much, but sometimes going from the bottom or middle up is another good strategy that's been valuable to me.
All right, does anybody have any questions from the audience? Anybody want to raise their hand? Okay, here we go.
So, could you give us an idea of the cost of casting director and maybe 2 examples of a short film with 4 main actors?
It really depends on the budget of the film. I don't really base my fee on how many actors. I base it on the budget. So, you try and, just like anything else, I try to get the most amount I possibly can. I sometimes want to develop a relationship with somebody, so we'll take a little less. It really depends on the situation. A casting director could, a young starting out casting director might be willing to do a film for $500 to $1,000. Somebody like me would not. But, you can make upwards of $100,000, $150,000 on a film and get some back-end points as well. So, I usually negotiate or have a lawyer negotiate or an agent, depending on the project, depending on the level of the project and who the players in the game are. But you do need to be prepared to, realize that a casting director does have to get paid for their time. And if you're not going to pay them for their time, they're probably going to say no, and then you're going to end up with somebody who might not have the relationships you're looking for. You're essentially buying my relationships. So I recommend when you look to hire a casting director, you meet a few people, you get recommendations, and you also look at their IMDb and say, well, where are the actors coming from that they're casting? And if you don't see what you want, then it might not be the right person for you. I kind of have an expression, you don't need to do anybody a favor. So try and surround yourself with a producer and people who have what you want to move up the ladder. So it's just going to be a lot easier for you. It doesn't mean that somebody can't be an associate producer or come, that you want to help them out, but you got to really, I use this word over and over again, who's managing your project. Because if those people don't know what they're doing and are not up to the game and the speed that you need them to be, the actors are not going to have a good experience on set, and it's going to end up being detrimental to your career.
Questions? Yes, all the way in the back.
For directors, what is the value as you see it for having representation, either a manager or an agent?
Well, no, I feel like that's our closest connect. Outside of the casting director that we would hire for a particular project, that would be our relationship to any actors or talent going forward in general. We live here and we're planning on writing and directing our material for the foreseeable future as opposed to taking other people's scripts or writing for somebody else. So we see our management team as being able to negotiate for us, but beyond that, our agents and managers are like outlets into that LA world, into all other kinds of talent if we ever wanted to reach out to somebody.
I was rep by WME for 7 years. I'm not represented by them anymore. And the previous film I was represented, and this new film I wasn't. So I can tell you now the difference in my experience. It was super helpful to have, especially if I was making an offer within my agency, the dude could just walk down the hallway and knock on the door and give me a quick answer. Is this something this person would consider? Is this person available? Is this something that they're looking to do? And that was invaluable. And on my new film, whenever there was some wonderful, tantalizing person and the agency and I do pros it, WME next to it, I was crestfallen. However, it didn't solve all my problems or make or break anything. But also, I would bet when I made offers at other agencies, I looked probably a little more impressive myself having representation, which I don't have right now. And I managed to put together a movie and raise the money and everything like that, but it was a disadvantage, for sure.
Our movie was also packaged by Endeavor, which is part of WME, and that was like amazing. That was everything. That was the reason that we got companies to talk to us for financing. We've had our script. We've been working on this script since 2012, so a super long time. And we were going to companies and just trying to hand it to them before we made our first short. Having a manager and an agent has changed the entire game. We wouldn't have made our film without it.
I'm actually curious to hear what Adrienne thinks, but this whole myth of like packaging at one agency, I've never really experienced. Because then you just want an actor paradigm and Gersh and CA and.
I think it's so important as filmmakers to establish yourself out there with every agency. You want them to know who you are. Just like Daniel said, he was at WME for 7 years and now he's a free agent. So basically, I always look at it as kind of like a Chinese menu. Like when I was a kid, you'd get one from column A, B, and C. It's like make sure your actors from Paradigm, from Gersh, from UTA, from ICM. Because if your film gets into a festival or something, they're going to help support you. The actors are going to support you. They're going to come to the festival. They're going to promote the film. Sometimes you cast an actor that lands on one of these, nighttime Jimmy Fallons, and Jimmy's like, well, what are you up to? And they'll say, well, I just did this feature film with Celine and Logan or with Daniel, and you get like a little pitch. So these are really important things to develop these relationships, and go for it. But I do agree. What is packaging, though? Let's be clarifying. There's two sorts of packaging in an agency. There's we're going to finance your film, or we're going to put every actor from our agency in your film.
Does the latter happen, though?
No. Yeah. Well, there are agencies you can heavily lean on, like if you're on a film and they're just grooving with you and they love it, and it just kind of magically falls into place, and all of a sudden you have 10 actors from the same agency, and you see that when you look up a film on IMDb, you're like, oh wow, like that agency must have loved this script, and that's great, and it's helpful. So it's something to think about. But a lot of times a filmmaker will say to me, great, they're really loving the script, the agency actors. Maybe that agency will also want to package it and finance it, and the answer is no. It's a completely different division, and that's not my job unless I'm your producer and you want to knock on that door yourself. And that's what they did, obviously.
Questions? Yes.
Can you just stand up with questions?
Hi. Can you guys talk a little bit about commitment letters from actors and your opinions on
they're called LOIs, letters of intent.
Yeah, can you talk about those a little bit? And are they a good idea, bad idea, when in the process, and just your
I think you got to be really upfront in the beginning of your casting process when you're looking for a named actor and you're making an offer to an agent. You have to be very clear what your financing situation is, that you're going to need a letter of intent. You don't want to go down the path and then spring it on them at 0 hour, because then everybody sort of has to okay, well, send us a copy. They have an attorney. We're going to look at it. It takes a lot of time, and then sometimes they come back to you and say, you know what, our actor, you can use their name, you can say they're attached, but we don't feel comfortable with an LOI. Today, I personally hate having to deal with LOIs just because there's a lot of lawyering going back and forth. I would rather the agent say, if I have a financer who wants to give you a call or shoot you an email, just to say, great, your actor's attached, let's do that. And that's sort of like a handshake agreement, and I do a lot more of that than the LOI today.
Yeah, I've never done an LOI. It's always been, either we communicate that with the agent, or if in the room the actor's like, I'm in, I'll literally say, so I can say that you're attached to this movie because I'm going to put that in all of my emails or whatever, just to make it crystal clear, but I think handshake deals people are usually pretty.
Right, and Daniel and Celine and Logan, they may have what's called a lookbook, and in that lookbook, it might only be for financiers, and, it's not something, I might have a separate lookbook that I'm gonna send to, the agent that's gonna have like the synopsis and character description, and everybody should have lookbooks for their project, just helps move a project along. But their lookbook will have that actor, if he's just working with Jennifer Aniston on a new film, he's gonna have it in that confidential lookbook that only those people who have privilege to see it will see.
We also had an actor that we thought was 100% in. We were told it was 100% in, negotiating with lawyers, drop out days before we shot, and that was the worst day of our lives. Maybe not, but it was really bad, and it was very stressful. We ended up casting this unknown guy who was amazing and made the part more than we thought it could be with that actor that we had, which is usually how it goes. But that, I think things can always fall through, I guess.
I'm gonna talk about that. When you start off to cast your film, have auditions, meet actors at the same time. Maybe you're pursuing somebody who's a little bit more recognizable, they're on a series or something, because exactly what Celine said, it happens all the time. They get something else with a bigger pay or whatever, or something comes up in their life. But you already had auditions, and you love that actor that came in, and now bingo, you have a chance to work with them so that the casting and yourself don't have to scramble. And I've scrambled, I've had actors with, terrible situations who we've just had to scramble overnight to replace, and it's been done many times.
The flip side of that too is that it happens all the time. So if it happens, you weren't a liar, you didn't con people, it happens. Sometimes somebody can get ill, sometimes somebody gets, frankly, Scorsese calls them up and it's a bit more tempting. And so just proceed forward. If somebody gives you their word, that's all you can ask for, and you hope they show up.
Questions? Question? Yes.
So as an actor who's my own content now, you mentioned media, how important it is on social media, but I was under the impression that while it's going to companies are being considered, that companies can't put it out in media. So at what point do you do that? When is it?
Totally. Okay, so a lot of film festivals are chill about Vimeo now. So Sundance allows your films to be online before we didn't do that, our film that was in Sundance isn't online yet. South by allows your films to be online before you even submit, like public. We just think, we have a few friends who are such amazing filmmakers who all their work is private. We really don't get it.
Yeah, I think we're speaking to the idea that just after we've made our short films, they've had a festival run, whether we put them online or not, but after that point, it's very important for us, and it's come from a place of, because, like Celine said, we self-finance them, so we're not in any position to, the money that we've made off of cash prizes or whatever, that's just been icing on top, because these have all just been calling cards for us as filmmakers. So we put it online because we want people to have one-click access to your work if you're truly proud of it. And that one-click access is why when we sent it to a friend of ours, they sent it to a friend of theirs who worked at WME, and sent it to someone else at WME, which is why we got called into WME. So we're just very strong believers in, if you're truly proud of the work that you've made, you don't want to try to sell your first short film, and put it behind some paywall, or give it to a friend of ours, sold it to a Criterion collection, hasn't made any money off of it, and he can't send his film to anybody, and it's an amazing film, and we think it's to his detriment.
Yeah, a lot of people watch staff picks, and that's another really great way to find actors is by watching Vimeo staff picks. Vimeo staff picks narrative content. They choose the best stuff, and so many of those are made in New York, and it's easy to find the actors from them. So if you're trying to make a really great short film and you find a few actors from a few different Vimeo staff picks, you can even reach out to the creator on Vimeo, send them a private message, and ask for their actors' contact information. All those actors would be happy to get your email.
I just also want to say, when you're starting out, if you have a short film, go cast it yourself. Learn how to sit in an audition, run an audition, talk to actors. You don't always need a casting director. You don't always need named talent. So, go experience it for yourself. I've turned down many short films because I feel like they can do it themselves. They don't need me. There's no reason to. So, learn get together with your fellow, filmmakers, put a team together, but, go out there and make it happen. One of the best short festivals, I think, is in Cannes. I don't know if anybody's ever been to that, but there's hundreds of people from all over the world in the short section in the market. You get to go in the market also. It's just a wonderful place to be. And, it's just a great place to have a calling card. I would be making as many shorts as I possibly could. It's your calling card over and over again. It got them where they needed to be.
Well, I just want to clarify, Adrienne's talked about the Cannes Short Film Corner. We were in main competition. We were the only US film main competition. The Cannes Short Film Corner is amazing. Anyone can get into the Cannes Short Film Corner. You just pay €80. The Cannes main competition is a totally different thing. You're not in competition in the Cannes Short Film Corner. Hundreds of filmmakers go every year. We gave some talks there. It was wonderful. We met a ton of filmmakers there. And they are still communicating with us today. Some of them asked for our actors' information to cast them in future projects. It's a great way, like Adrienne's saying, to meet a lot of people, but it is just that, it's a market. It's not a film festival.
We haven't really talked much about casting your own movies, without the use of somebody else, but I had great success, even on my last movie, which also had a casting director, but I was still looking for young, certain quality of actor that we use casting breakdown services for, which is a website that people from around the country were able to submit video auditions to us, headshots first if we had to approve them that, but also because a lot of my friends do it, I go to improv theaters all over New York, and you want to make somebody's day, go up to them after the show and say, hey, I'd love to put you in my short film or feature, and I can almost guarantee you they'll do it. And it's such a fun discovery, and sometimes your characters become more interesting because there's a fully fleshed out persona there on stage that was more interesting than your character, and you get lucky.
I think ultimately, from our perspective at least, we're just trying to make really, really good content, not just sell with like a big name. And maybe it feels like a lot of you guys are at that stage too. So to make like the best content, you just want the best actor. And going to acting schools and going to improv clubs and comedy clubs and stuff is such a great way to do that. Or looking at Vimeo staff picks, rather than trying to reach out to big names who will like deign themselves to be in your short or whatever. Like you want people, like Logan said earlier, who are just as hungry as you are.
Yeah, and if you come up with a little bit of money, take your money and run. Make your short, make your film. Don't wait for somebody else to come along and give you more money. You may not get it.
Good question, yeah, front.
Yes, I made a film 20 years ago at the American Film Institute, and I didn't want to send it in. Like, I had this idea that I wanted to focusing more on and like and older. So I was thinking like, hey, look, I've got some really good stuff in it. I can put it on, but I'm sort of holding on. I realize now I'm going to have that holding on. But I listen to you. Where would I send it? Should I take a little piece of my film? Like how much?
Yeah, if that's the film, you should put the whole thing online. If you're proud of it, you should always, if you're not proud of it, you should bury it. Just send little cuts to your actors for their reels. Because they're like, oh, it'll go online soon.
Well, people can put short films on YouTube or Vimeo. Those are sort of the two distribution platforms where you can post them yourselves.
Vimeo's the best.
But Vimeo is like a little bit more elevated in our minds, and there's no advertising in a way that is really, really nice. You can embed them in nicer ways. We've just been really big supporters of them. Their curated staff picks are just like how we tapped into so much.
That's actually another quick point about Vimeo. Vimeo also does live commentary screenings now in New York. And most of the Vimeo people who pick the staff picks are there. They like monitor it, whatever. Moderate, that's what I meant. Moderate it. So you should totally like look up those screenings with Vimeo. Ladies with Lenses is another one if you want to get in with the staff pickers so that you can like, that's how your short gets seen by bigger actors. That's like, it's all a snowball effect.
Big question over here, yes.
About casting for a smaller event. How often do you have, say, a different vision than the writer, and how it works out when you're doing the casting? Say I have a great character, but you see something else, and do you have one where it gets changed like that or not?
Well, it's part of the collaboration. When you read somebody's script, I'm always going to read a script and I'm going to have a conversation and I'm going to make some suggestions. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, or sometimes we're going in path A and it's not really gelling and we're going to go in path B and all of a sudden it just is, brings it to life. I also, when I get a script that's like a New York story and it's very vanilla, I'm like, let's shake this and make it. We have to have all ethnicities, all different, you have a lot of men, you have some of these roles be women. So that's my job to absolutely collaborate with them.
There was a question in the back.
Regarding markets like AFM, EFM, any opinions or experience or like advice on what to bring or like how to manage it or how to survive it?
He's asking about foreign sales markets.
Or AFM as well.
I got nothing for you.
What do you want to know, how the foreign sales markets work?
I mean, my understanding, I've never been to one.
I've been to lots of them. I've been to AFM, I've been to Toronto and did the marketing camp. Basically, every company has a booth, and some companies at the bigger festivals are in hotel suites. And in the market, you can approach people. Some of the bigger companies, you really can't go just walk up to A24 and be like, hey, I want to pitch you my film. But there's a lot of, look for people who have films that seem to fit into the world you're. If you see all posters of kung fu films and you're making a coming of age film, you can pass that, by and don't waste your time. So, that's what markets are about. And you're going to meet lots of people and network and go to the cocktail things, but you never know, what's going to come out of it. I hope I answered it. But they're fun. They're big conventions.
We have time for one last question. All right.
So thank you. You talking about actors and casting directors. What if you're looking for other crew members, like a production manager? Is there a website or something that you can go?
We found all of those people from our producing team, so our line producers. Our line producer was super helpful, or our production team in general. And then we developed a relationship you could also, another great way to do it would be looking in the credits of stuff, just on IMDb, reaching out, or on Vimeo again, just looking in the credits and finding names that you're like, wow, that was such a great cinematography, I'd love to speak to that DP.
I think for me personally, Facebook.com is probably the best place that I go to, because you can look up somebody's credit, but I know a lot of people who got credits who either didn't do the job or was some monster to deal with, but somebody firsthand recommending you, I work with this person, they're fantastic, and then tagging their name. I mean, it's a good start and likely to be at a level where they're not an Academy Award winner, but somebody who's up and coming and hungry, and maybe they're a great art director and they're looking for that opportunity to get that production designer seat or something like that. That's also something you want to identify, somebody this is an opportunity for them. They're a great DP, but they've only gotten to do stupid car commercials. They really want to do that feature for nothing and give you their camera and their ace crew and all that kind of stuff. And it's about kind of hopping on those people. They're a tremendous resource.
I just want to ask one last question. So when we think about narrative films, of course, we think about remarkable actors, name talent. What about, I don't know if any of you have experience with this, but in the world of documentaries, we screened documentaries in the past. We had one that was narrated by Olympia Dukakis, another one that was narrated by John Turturro. Would you say is it worth it to have a known talent do a voiceover for a documentary? Does it help in that world also?
Yeah, I did the PBS documentary last year. We started it 3 years ago, and when I first did it, I cast all the reenactment actors that we shot up in Maine and Boston. And then they came to me and they're like, okay, well, we need somebody to be Joseph Pulitzer. So we got very lucky. We got Leo Schreiber, and then he was the linchpin to getting everybody else. So they put a lot of pressure on me. They're like, well, if we have Leo, we need names for every single role. So I presented them, and they're like, nope, this isn't what we want. We need names. So I was like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board here. So anyway, we got very lucky because I had 2 women do the narration. I got Rachel Brosnahan and Lauren Ambrose, and then I had a number of men were needed for the narration. So I got Sebastian Stan, Billy Magnuson, and Hugh Dancy, and a couple of New York actors that we knew played smaller parts. And so I was done, or at least I thought I was done. And then 6 months later, they're like, well, you know, we got this cast and we're done, but we need a narrator now. So they're like, well, we want Denzel. And I'm like, I just made an offer to him and we didn't even hear back, so I don't think that's happening. So they're like, well, come up with a list. And I came up with a list, and they liked one of the names on the list. We made an offer, and he said yes immediately. We got Adam Driver to be our narrator. So, you know, we hit all the buttons. We just got so lucky with film. That's how I say it. But that's a documentary, and why not? You know, go for what you can. I think actors like doing docs because they go into the voiceover studio. It's one day. They're making a nice salary. So, you know, do keep that in mind.
I just want to say one, this has nothing to do with your question, though, is that okay? But just because, I hope that we haven't also said that, oh, if you don't have a big-time casting director or an agent, like this can't happen. Fortune favors the bold. And I mean, just going to that one small story of how I got Fran Drescher, my girlfriend at the time who had never produced a movie, she just kind of called someone up, had balls, did it, and 2 days later we were on Skype, and because she was able to present it. And there is nothing more thrilling or powerful than a great script. And I maybe read 4 in my life. They are rare, but if you see one, the cream will rise to the top. If you truly have something to value, you will not have your eyes rolled at. If you have something that, you know, it's execution dependent and maybe if you do a good job in it, then you're on your own. But a great script that grabs you from page 1, I think, can go all the way, you know, for anybody.
Can I just get just a couple seconds of last advice to give? Let's start with Logan. Final advice on casting.
On casting, yeah, just definitely take the time when you're in the room with somebody, if you're in an audition setting, to interact with them the way that you expect. I mean, this is us speaking as directors, but the way that you would expect to interact with them on set. So for us, it's very important to improvise with them and to have an actual conversation, get a sense of, you know, who they are as a person, not just, you really want to take that time to really drink them in as a person and not just think about them for the role.
I think also to allow yourself to be surprised. When you have actors coming in for roles, sometimes you have a really specific idea of what you want in your head, and then suddenly someone walks in and they're perfect and in every way that you thought that they would be.
For me, from my years of experience, I think once you do cast your talent, be confident with them, be a leader, don't be scared of them, don't be intimidated. They're looking to you to make a great film. They're there for you, so collaborate with them, and that's why they're there, and make it really a great experience.
My advice is not like as inspiring, it's more like another scheme that I have for you, but it's if you're going to offer to an actor, you know, you really want them to do it, sometimes I write a couple extra scenes for that actor and make the role seem a little meatier, and sometimes they actually end up in the final movie, and people care about that stuff. It's like bullshit, my line if you're being offered, so, you know, make it juicy.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for the panel. Thank you all for being here.